I know that these humans are the real animals. I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow their house down.
I don't know. They call themselves Jews, but are the synagogue of Satan, Babel, Moloch, Nimrod. How many? Why don't y'all listen to this? Alright.
Facts are facts. We're going to get a little deeper here now, so you understand who your enemy is. Edom. Edom is modern Jewry. It comes right out of the 1925 Jewish Encyclopedia, Volume 5, page 41. Who are the Edomites? Edom is modern Jews. Edomites are from Edomia, not of true Israel the man, once called Jacob, or his son Judah. Jews were never slaves in Egypt with Moses, as even the Jews confessed in John 8:31. So Jews cannot be the racial Israelites of Israel the man once called Jacob of the Bible, despite what you or your Bible says or what your lying preacher or priest has to say. Strictly speaking, it is incorrect to call an ancient Israelite a Jew, or to call a contemporary Jew an Israelite or a Hebrew. That comes right out of the Jewish Almanac of 1980, page 3. Thus, Jews know that they themselves are self-confessed frauds. They are not God's chosen people. They are not the Israelites of old, of the man called Israel, and they are not the Hebrews of old. Plain and simple. They're a bunch of lying, filthy, communist Jews is what they are.
It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The result you can see. Most of the people who graduated in the 60s, dropouts or half-baked intellectuals, are now occupying the positions of power in the government, civil service, business, mass media, educational system. You are stuck with it.
Say, come to America. We can take up over all this land, and we're going to get all these blacks, and we're going to use them. And so after the Constitution was ratified in 1789, guess what? The next year, the first bill that Congress passed, that same Congress you see up on the hill there, first bill they passed was called an immigration bill, which says the way we're going to keep this status quo, what you're talking about in discrimination, so you can pick and choose, the way we're going to keep that is that we're going to make sure that in this country, this is pronounced as a white nation. And the only people who can come here can be white immigrants. And that way we make sure we keep or maintain a balance of control. And so we dominated the population in Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, South Carolina, Louisiana, all the way across the country was dominated by blacks in population, 51%. And when they say every time they bring in whites in this country, the immigration laws is the leverage they use to make sure that there's a racial balance with a lot of whites and no blacks. All these Asians, Arabs, and every other group coming here. When I was in the White House with President Carter, they are defined by policies in this country as whites. Hispanics are nothing but whites speaking Spanish. And the biggest enslavement groups in the country and in the world were Hispanics, Arabs, French, Germans, British, Norwegians, and Portuguese. Those were all slave and holding nations in Europe. And also to spread over, we had Asians or slave holders. American Indians were slave holders. Every group in this world has been holding blacks into slavery. And they always want to mix them together and call it, well, Dr. Anderson is the only one trying to point it out to them. We'll use very broad and ambiguous words. These black folk won't know the difference. Nixon talked about that in the White House. We came in 1982. And saying that we told Holden what to do is you always use these very broad, ambiguous words when you talk about race. He used to use words like minority, poor folk, people of color, black, blue collar workers, poor whites, anything. The blacks will never figure it out.
Well, you know, Dr. Anderson, I'll tell you what, it's interesting you talk about that. I heard you a minute ago talk about, just some of the false ideas we have about the role Native Americans played in what happened to black people. And this is not, a blanket an indictment, but
if the government provides your food, your clothing, your shelter, your education, your job, your medical care, your retirement, then the government controls you most effectively indeed. If that government should ever become tyrannical, and they have a way of doing that in history, then you've had it, my friends. We believe that one of the greatest lessons of history that so desperately needs to be relearned by the American people, our forefathers knew it well, is this. Any time a government is powerful enough to give the people everything they want, it is also powerful enough to take from the people everything they've got. You cannot have one without the other. Even if collectivism were not morally wrong, even if it did produce a higher standard of living, we would still oppose it because freedom is more important than prosperity.
Benjamin Netanyahu, who is the most unpopular, the most despised, the most corrupt, the most incompetent, the most psychopathic, delusional, and despotic ruler that Israel has ever had. He's responsible for both prolonging and worsening the conflict with the Palestinians.
They do not want your children to be educated. They do not want you to think too much. That is why our country and our world has become so proliferated with entertainments, mass media, game shows, television shows, amusement parks, drugs, alcohol, and every kind of entertainment to keep the human mind entertained so that you don't get in the way of important people by doing too much thinking. You had better wake up and understand that there are people who are guiding your life and you don't even know it. And all American citizens, I think, have suspected something like this is going on. But we're all too busy trying to stay alive and live our lives. And after all, what can one person do about it?
Leave it in the comments section.